As the darkness gathers and the village sleeps, I always come back to this one, a tale of a long-forgotten custom that whispers secrets of the past, a midnight requiem of forgotten souls. The moon casts an eerie glow over the old churchyard, where weathered headstones stand like sentinels, guarding the remains of those who lived and died centuries ago. You would have heard the wind rustling through the trees, a gentle lullaby that belies the darkness that once unfolded beneath the cover of night. In medieval Europe, particularly in rural England, a peculiar tradition emerged, one that speaks to the complexities of human nature, where the living sought to reconnect with the dead to ease their passage into the afterlife. In the stillness of the night, villagers would creep into the churchyard, their lanterns casting flickering shadows on the ground as they made their way to the graves of their loved ones. The air would be heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay, a morbid perfume that clung to their clothes and skin, a reminder of the transience of life. With spades and pickaxes in hand, they would carefully reopen the graves, not to desecrate the dead, but to ensure their spirits were at peace. It was believed that the souls of the departed would linger, trapped between worlds, seeking closure, and the living would provide it through a strange and solemn ritual. The sound of digging would echo through the night, a mournful serenade, as the villagers unearthed the coffins and peered into the darkness, searching for signs of unrest. They would whisper prayers and leave offerings, a token of their love and respect, hoping to ease the journey of the forgotten souls. It's a haunting image, one that lingers in the mind, a testament to the enduring power of love and memory, even in the face of death and decay. As the night wore on, the villagers would reinter the remains, their task complete, the midnight requiem of forgotten souls, a whispered promise to the dead that they would never be truly forgotten. The darkness would slowly recede as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, and the village would awaken, unaware of the secret rituals that took place under the cover of night. As the last remnants of daylight faded from the sky, villagers in medieval Europe would often gather at the local cemetery, their faces illuminated only by the soft glow of candles or the pale light of the moon. You would have heard the sound of shovels scraping against the earth, the murmur of hushed conversations, and the faint scent of decay wafting through the air. It was a time for the living to reconnect with the dead, to revisit the graves of loved ones, and to perform rituals that had been passed down through generations. I always come back to this one, the way the darkness seemed to amplify the sense of reverence and respect that pervaded these nocturnal gatherings. In many rural communities, it was customary to reopen the graves of the deceased at night, often on specific dates or during certain phases of the moon. This practice, known as grave reopening or exhumation, was a way for families to pay their respects, to clean and maintain the graves, and to ensure that the spirits of the dead were at peace. The process was often slow and laborious, with villagers carefully uncovering the earth, examining the condition of the body, and making any necessary repairs to the coffin or grave marker. It was a somber and intimate affair, with the living seeking to reassure themselves that their loved ones were still present, still a part of their lives, even in death. As the night wore on, the villagers would often leave offerings at the graves, such as food, drink, or small tokens of remembrance. These gifts were meant to sustain the dead on their journey, to provide them with comfort and solace in the afterlife. The air would be thick, with the scent of incense and candle smoke, and the sound of whispered prayers would carry on the wind. It was a time for the living to acknowledge their own mortality, to confront the darkness that lay ahead, and to find solace in the rituals and traditions that had been passed down to them. The darkness seemed to press in around them, a reminder of the mysteries that lay beyond the reach of human understanding. And yet, in this quiet, solemn atmosphere, the villagers found a sense of peace, a sense of connection to the land, to their ancestors, and to the cycle of life and death that governed their world. The darkness of rural landscapes, where the moon casts an eerie glow over the silent villages, has long been a backdrop for a most peculiar and haunting tradition. In the quiet hours of the night, when the world seems to be holding its breath, you would have heard the soft murmur of whispers, the rustling of fabric, and the gentle scraping of earth. It was in these moments that the villagers, driven by a mix of curiosity and desperation, would reopen the graves of their loved ones, exhuming bodies under the faint light of the moon. This practice, though macabre to our modern sensibilities, was a desperate attempt to understand the mysteries of death and the afterlife. I always come back to this one, the story of a small village in 17th century Europe, where the locals believed that the bodies of the deceased held secrets to the universe. They would carefully unearth the coffins and, with a sense of reverence, examine the remains, searching for signs of decay or perhaps a glimpse of the soul's departure. The custom, known as exhumation by moonlight, was not unique to this village alone, as similar practices have been documented in various cultures throughout history. In medieval England, for instance, the corpses of those who died under suspicious circumstances were exhumed and examined to determine the cause of death. The procedure, though gruesome, was a necessary step in the pursuit of justice, and in some cases, the identification of a potential killer. As the night wore on, the villagers would meticulously reinter the bodies, often with a sense of trepidation, as if they were afraid of disturbing the rest of the dead. The air would be filled with the scent of damp earth and the sound of murmured prayers, as the living sought to reconnect with the departed. It was a somber ritual, one that underscored the fragile boundary between life and death, and the eternal human quest to comprehend the unknown. In the stillness of the night, the villagers would return to their homes, their hearts heavy with the weight of mortality, yet somehow at peace with the darkness that surrounded them. The village of Mayrise, nestled in the rolling hills of rural France, was a place of quiet reverence, where the living and the dead coexisted in an uneasy harmony. As night fell, the villagers would retire to their homes, leaving the streets to the shadows, and it was during these dark hours that a strange and solemn ritual would unfold. You would have heard the soft crunch of gravel beneath footsteps, the creaking of old wooden gates, as the villagers made their way to the local cemetery, their faces obscured by the darkness. I always come back to this one, the way the villagers would move with a purpose, their actions driven by a mix of superstition and tradition. It was the late 18th century, and the practice of reopening graves at night had been a part of the village's folklore for generations. The villagers believed that the spirits of the deceased would return to their bodies after dark, and that by exhuming the graves, they could communicate with their loved ones or even settle unfinished business. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay, as the villagers would carefully uncover the coffins, their fingers tracing the intricate carvings that adorned the wooden lids. The silence was almost palpable, broken only by the occasional hooting of an owl or the distant howl of a wolf. As the night wore on, the villagers would perform their rituals, whispering prayers and leaving offerings of food and drink, in the hopes of appeasing the restless spirits. The darkness seemed to press in around them, the shadows cast by the moonlight twisting and writhing like living things. And when they finally returned to their homes, the graves would be resealed, the earth smoothed over, leaving no sign of the nocturnal activities that had taken place. The villagers would then retire to their beds, their dreams no doubt filled with visions of the dead and the secrets that lay buried beneath their feet. The stillness of the night would be restored, the only sound the soft rustling of the wind through the trees, as the village of Mayrise slumbered, surrounded by the silent shadows of its departed loved ones. As the darkness falls and the village grows quiet, you would have heard the sound of shovels scraping against the earth, the creaking of wooden coffins, and the faint murmur of whispers carried on the wind. It's a sound that echoes through the annals of history, a haunting reminder of a long-forgotten practice that once took place in the dead of night. In medieval Europe, particularly in rural areas, it was not uncommon for villagers to reopen graves, to revisit the bodies of their loved ones, and to engage in a macabre ritual that would seem unfathomable to us today. I always come back to this one, the way the villagers would return to the graves, like a dark pilgrimage, driven by a mix of superstition, curiosity, and a deep-seated need to reconnect with the dead. The practice, known as exhumation or revisitation, was often performed under the cover of darkness, away from prying eyes and the judgmental gaze of the church. The villagers would gather at the local cemetery, their faces illuminated only by the faint light of candles or the moon, and begin the painstaking process of uncovering the graves. The air would be heavy with the scent of damp earth, decay, and the sweet smell of flowers as they carefully removed the soil and exposed the coffins to the night air. It was a slow, laborious process, one that required great care and a deep respect for the dead, as they sought to reconnect with the departed, to seek guidance, or to simply pay their respects. As the graves yawn open, the villagers would peer into the darkness, hoping to catch a glimpse of the deceased, to see if the body had begun to decompose, or if it remained remarkably preserved. It was a fascination with death, a morbid curiosity that drove them to revisit the graves, to touch the coffins, and to whisper prayers to the dead. The sound of their whispers, the creaking of the coffins, and the scraping of the shovels would fill the night air, a haunting serenade to the departed, as the villagers sought to bridge the gap between life and death. And as the night wears on, the villagers would slowly, quietly cover the graves once more, leaving the dead to their eternal rest, and the living to their dark and troubled thoughts. As the moon casts its silvery glow over the rural landscapes of 18th century Europe, a peculiar and somewhat unsettling custom was practiced by the villagers, one that would have been whispered about in hushed tones had you been there to hear the faint murmurs of a long-forgotten tradition. It was a time when the veil between the living and the dead seemed to grow thinner, and the people of these villages would often find themselves drawn to the local burial grounds, not to pay their respects, but to uncover the secrets that lay beneath the earth. I always come back to this one, the way the darkness seemed to envelop the villagers as they made their way to the graves, their lanterns casting flickering shadows on the ground. The practice, known as exhumation or disinterring, was a common occurrence in certain parts of the continent, particularly in the rural areas of England and Scotland, where the superstitions surrounding death and the afterlife ran deep. It was believed that the deceased, in their journey to the afterlife, would often leave behind a part of themselves, a fragment of their soul, which could be used to heal the living or bring good fortune to the community. And so, under the cover of night, the villagers would secretly reopen the graves, carefully unearthing the coffins and examining the remains for any signs of unsettling change. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay. As the villagers worked in silence, their faces illuminated only by the faint light of their lanterns. As the nights wore on and the seasons passed, the villagers would return to the graves again and again, searching for any indication that the deceased was still with them, watching over them, guiding them. It was a complex and somewhat contradictory mix of fear and reverence, as the living sought to connect with the dead, to seek their counsel, and to find solace in their presence. The darkness seemed to press in around them, a physical presence that weighed heavily on their shoulders as they worked to uncover the secrets that lay beyond the tomb. And yet, despite the somber nature of this custom, there is a certain tranquility to be found in the villagers' actions, a sense of peace that comes from knowing that, even in death, there is still a connection to be found, a bond that transcends the boundaries of life and death. The silence was almost palpable, a heavy blanket that wrapped around the villagers as they worked in the stillness of the night, their hearts beating slowly in time with the darkness that surrounded them. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting a dark veil over the rural landscape, the villages of medieval Europe would often succumb to an unsettling quiet, a stillness that seemed to seep into the very bones of the living. It was during these hours, when the last remnants of daylight had faded, that a Sama ritual would take place, one that would have been unthinkable in the warm glow of day. You would have heard the soft rustling of footsteps, the muffled whispers of villagers as they made their way to the local cemetery, their faces obscured by the shadows that danced upon the ground. I always come back to this one, the practice of reopening graves at night, a custom that seems to defy the very fabric of our understanding of mourning and respect for the dead. And yet, it was a ritual that held a strange, almost mystical significance for these villagers, a way of reconnecting with their loved ones, of finding solace in the darkness that had taken them. The graves, often marked with simple wooden crosses or rough-hewn stones, would be carefully reopened, the earth disturbed, and the contents revealed to the moonlit sky. In the villages of medieval Germany, this practice was particularly prevalent, with families often gathering at the graveside to pray, to weep, and to remember. The night air would be filled with the sweet scent of incense, the soft murmur of prayers, and the faint glow of candles, casting an ethereal light upon the proceedings. It was a time for the living to confront their mortality, to come to terms with the transience of life, and to find a sense of peace in the presence of the dead. As the night wore on, the villagers would slowly disperse, leaving the graves to the darkness, the shadows that rose with the night, and the silence that seemed to swallow all in its path. The darkness would close in, a soft, enveloping shroud, and the village would be left to its slumber, the graves once more at rest. As the darkness deepens and the silence of the night wraps around you, You would have heard the sound of shovels scraping against the earth, the soft murmur of voices, and the creaking of wooden coffins had you been standing in the forgotten cemeteries of 18th century Europe, where the villagers would often reopen the graves of their loved ones under the cover of darkness. It's a practice that may seem macabre to us now, but it was a necessary ritual, a way for the living to reconnect with the dead, to ensure that the deceased were indeed at rest, and to perform certain customs that were believed to bring peace to the departed. I always come back to this one, the way the villagers would gently remove the soil and the wooden planks to reveal the coffins, sometimes adorned with flowers and other tokens of love. The air would be heavy with the scent of damp earth and the faint smell of decay as the villagers would carefully examine the bodies to check for any signs of what they believed to be unnatural death or malevolent spirits. It was a time of great superstition, and the fear of the unknown was palpable, yet amidst all this, there's a sense of reverence, a deep respect for the dead that's hard to ignore. The villagers believed that by reopening the graves, they could prevent the spread of diseases and evil spirits that were thought to emanate from the corpses, and they would often perform rituals and prayers to cleanse the air and the souls of the departed. As the night wears on and the task is complete, the villagers would cover the graves once more and return to their homes, their hearts heavy with the weight of their duties, but also with a sense of peace, knowing that they've done their part to ensure the rest of their loved ones. And as you lie there in the darkness, you can almost feel the stillness of the night, the quiet reflection that follows such a somber ritual, a sense of connection to the past, to the people who lived and died in a time so different from our own, yet somehow still familiar. The darkness outside seems to press in, a gentle reminder of the mysteries that lie just beyond our reach, and the silence that follows is a soft, soothing balm that calms the mind and the heart.